Hello and welcome to the Make Ideas Reality podcast. I'm Justin White, aka the Garage Avenger. Story matters. We are a species addicted to story. Even when our body goes to sleep, our mind stays up all night telling itself stories. There is a scientific explanation for our love of stories. When we hear a story that resonates with us, our levels of the feel-good hormone oxytocin increase. My guest today, Eric from Hand Tool Rescue, gets his oxytocin high from delving into the stories of the old and forgotten tools of the world, digging up patterns and talking with collectors from all around the world to understand the story behind the tool. In this episode, Eric shares the real reasons why he loves restoring tools. He delves into the stories about finding and attaining those unique tools. He shares the craziest pattern story you've ever heard, along with stories of his experience with friend and podcast co-host Andrew. And to finish, we talk about his white whales, the tools he desires the most, which he hasn't yet got his hands on. You're in for a treat with this one, guys, so let's get into it. Some save dogs from the pound, some free. I can't even say this one. It's so stupid. All right, I'll start again.
I demand you say it.
Just
tell them I wrote this for myself.
I think anyone that listens normally will realize that you never wrote this.
Yeah, tell them I wrote this specifically for you to say about me.
All right, here we go. Some save dogs from the pound, some feed hungry kids all year round. One thing most fail to cherish, old tools, which happen to be his fetish. Welcome to the show, Eric from Hand Tool Rescue.
Amazing. Exquisite. Thank you very much.
Was that good enough for you?
That's just the first poem I've ever had written about myself.
It was good.
While I was wearing clothes.
You know what I've done? I had some drafts in there, and there weren't much. My wife she did not approve. Fetish was a nice way of putting what I originally wrote.
Just send me all the original lyrics, thank you.
I'll do. No, I probably won't. You'll never talk to me again. So
high standards, yeah.
Welcome to the show, Eric. For those who don't know who you are, I just thought I'd give you the little opportunity to give everyone a little 1-minute spiel about who you are and what you do and why you do it. So off you go.
Sure. Very simply, I am Eric from Hand Tool Rescue, and I restore old and lost and forgotten tools, mainly on YouTube for funsies. And that's basically it. The reasonings, other than for funsies, is just because I'm obsessed with these things for some reason. And it's an addiction at this point, and I can't stop.
Yeah, it seems like you've got this
I have a problem.
So today we're going to be talking about, with Eric, of course, the stories behind the tools. And story matters, and it's a way we connect with others. And as content makers and creatives, it's how we communicate our ideas. And if we get it wrong, we usually lose our audience. And as I said in the intro, we are biologically wired to enjoy a good story. And that's often why we love watching our favorite series and digging into a good book, or as in Eric's case, digging into the weird and wonderful world of old tools. And from the caveman times, we sat around campfires and told stories about the bear hunt or the fishing adventure, and stories offered an effective mechanism for knowledge transfer. And from this perspective, the campfire was like the social media platform of the day, and everyone congregated around and engaged in interpersonal information exchange. And that's how communities developed shared identities and culture. And the likes, comments, and shares were often given verbally. And as time passed by, the stories were transformed into legends and like handed down to generation and generation. And then now, today, the new campfire is the internet pretty much. And we have things like Netflix and YouTube leading the way. And we use these platforms and other platforms to get our entertainment and knowledge. And the power of storytelling, whether it's a movie, political campaign, YouTube video, is built on the timeless 3-act story structure, which is setting, conflict, and resolution. So the stories behind the tools are no different. And today I'm hoping Eric will share with us some of the stories he's come across when getting his oxytocin high from researching, finding, and restoring old tools.
Yes. And there's a lot of interesting old stories for sure. Big time.
So I thought I'd get off with the first question and sort of ask you, what is it about old tools that really just, gets your rocks off?
The complicated question. I still can never point to one singular thing that is the main reason. It's at this point when I analyze my feelings towards it, it seems to be a culmination of a bunch of things, mainly being, I love, first of all, that it needs to be restored, like it's in a state that's degrading and it can be repaired, because some things that are made now that you have with you in your daily life cannot really be repaired in the same way. It's a lot of just replace the parts or whatever it may be. So it's the fact that you can actually repair this. It's not something beyond the realm of at least my abilities. So that's very tempting to me already. And then the fact that usually, at least what I'm drawn to, is the more unique, or the more I guess dangerous, or the or even the more and I always call it gizmosity, but just more things moving mechanically rather than electronically or something like that. It's just so interesting to see some of these tools actually function, and I need to restore that function so that I can be happy and see it again. That's part of the major draw for me. And the process itself, once you get into it, is very therapeutic and very relaxing and rewarding, because you get to put some time and effort into something, and it's not so massively crazy complex that no one on earth can figure it out. It's just some nice, fun, working with your hands type activity that makes your brain calm down. And I love that part about it too.
I think it's interesting what you mentioned before was that, you can fix it. And these days, like even mechanics, like look at when you take your car to the mechanic, they don't fix anything. They just literally just change parts.
Yeah, well, it's more efficient, I guess, for a business to maybe run that way. It's not worth their time chasing down the actual specific issue. Just swap the whole part out for $10 or whatever, $100 and be gone.
Yeah, I fully get that, but I mean, because we've lost skills in the mechanic sort of world, haven't we? Though, because the old mechanics, sort of our grandfathers sort of era, they did everything. They did welding, they
Yes, it's gotten
things.
probably more specific. You would pick kind of a specific trade within that. I guess larger trade. Maybe that's the wrong type of words, but yeah, it's more that the problem solving aspect when you encounter a 100-year-old tool or whatever it is, and there's no documentation, there's no history, the exact opposite almost of what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Where you really have to kick your brain into high gear and think about, okay, so let's solve the mystery of how this was made, what color it was, why the design choice was this way, and then you can recreate that in the best possible way you know how, and hope that the end product is what you want, because it's just like an endless stream of possibilities if you don't just choose something.
Being that you have to do a lot of research and go into the depths of restoring something, like what's the most treasured tool that you have restored, and what was the story behind it?
Okay, so until recently, I would have said the drag saw that I restored, which, in case not everyone is informed of what a drag saw is, it's basically one of those 2-man crosscut saws attached to an engine that saws back and forth at very high speeds. And that to me was so interesting, not only to restore, because it required, I had to do woodworking and metalworking and machining and cast iron repair, and I had to do electrical to rebuild the magneto. Like it was like the culmination of all of my abilities that needed to be applied into restoring one tool. Not only was that fun, but just the history behind its existence is just mind-blowing. So this wasn't something that was a precursor to the chainsaw. This was something that was, believe it or not, competing in the same space at the same time, which blows my mind, because how do you compare? The first few chainsaws were in like the 1910s, and they were electric. Some of them, the gas was a little bit later, and it's just so tiny and lightweight, and it was just a little tiny electrical motor and a bar and a chain. It was fairly simple.
Yeah.
And then you go from that to, okay, well, I guess if it has to be portable, we can't use electric. So let's just put a like 5 horsepower, 200-pound engine on like a 50-pound wooden frame, and then build and cast all the parts to transfer that circular engine motion into a sawing motion, and put one wheel on it, so a guy in slacks and a dress shirt in the middle of a forest can wheel it around like a wheelbarrow throughout the forest, carrying a total of 350 pounds in and around fallen trees and branches and soft dirt, so they can set up and both fell and buck up a tree for whatever purpose they need to. That for some reason was the optimal choice for this business to go with their design of how you would accomplish that. It's just hilarious and amazing.
How do you know what the guy was wearing? That was just...
Because let me tell you about it. There are original advertisements of actual photos of guys using this in the forest, and they're dressed exactly in slacks and a dress shirt. And that was like days, right? that as everyone was. You're like pre-lumberjack jacket days. It's just hilarious and still mind-blowing. I'll never get over. I couldn't even move this thing for maybe like 50 feet before I was like, nah, I'm good. The wheel's just metal. It's just a metal wheel. It's not pneumatic. It's not like a nice cushion, super easy to roll with bearings. It's literally just a steel wheel with a solid steel axle that has no lubrication whatsoever or any bearings.
So what was the story behind it? Why did they think that was the best solution opposed to like
It's just what different people thought was a better solution at the time. In much like anything that's new, there's a lot of competing ideas, and then they all get kind of filtered down over time to like one. Like now, there's one adjustable wrench design,
right?
basically,
Yeah.
right? And there are literally thousands and thousands of mass-produced, not just patented, but mass-produced wrenches at the turn of the century, and they just go away because they don't fit what people want, I guess, over time. So that's the same process that was going on here with how do we improve the speed of cutting down trees and processing the wood as much as we can. And the specific drag saw solution was because they had no other way at the time. There weren't really super tiny like two-stroke engines. It just didn't exist, and battery technology was obviously like literally just starting to be placed into mass production. So we're nowhere close on anything other than using gas, or in that case, for that specific saw was kerosene. You could run it on either, and that was the only portable option. If you wanted portable, it had to be gas. If you didn't, it was electric with a really long wire. If you specifically needed something, you could get it made like pneumatic or hydraulically. But either way, you would have to have hundreds and hundreds of feet of wire or tubing, or you just went with the gas saw. It's just mind blowing. So part of why I love chainsaws so much in general is because of that, like race to the final chainsaw design, because there's so many different crazy variations. Like I have a saw called a Sally saw where the blade looks like a donut, and it has holes stamped into kind of like the middle ring of the blade, and then tooth gears move that blade along in a circular motion, and then that's how, and you would stab that into the tree as it spun to cut the tree. Like what? Just obviously, that's a way better design. Like I have no idea who thought of it, because I haven't restored it yet, but I will. But it's all that kind of stuff ends up being the weirdest, most collectible, most interesting stuff, because like everybody has an adjustable wrench that looks like an adjustable wrench. Like not a lot of people have the adjustable wrench that was patented in 1875. That doesn't exist at the same level. So it's all the variations from the norm that end up getting the most attention from collectors for sure, but just from me personally, I love that. It's that whole process of literal progress. Like we had to know that this was a bad idea in order to make something else. It just had to be done.
Yeah.
And it's cool. It's awesome that they're still around, those examples.
Well, I mean, thanks to you, I guess, and those collectors, right? Those guys that are like keeping these stuff in their barns and that sort of thing. And that leads me to my next question: is like, to find this stuff, it's not exactly just lying around on the street and you're like, hey, that's that one of those cool,
exactly.
like what's the journey like to find and attain some of these tools that you've got your hands on?
Yes, it's a different process for every tool. It ends up being, a lot was just absolutely destroyed during World War II for World War II purposes. And whatever's left now is mainly with collectors at this point. I would say that like a lot of the really good stuff, I think, I can't verify in any specific way, but it's been a long enough time since World War II that a lot of like the really good stuff is known about at this point,
Yeah.
or it has been destroyed. So collectors hold a big chunk of everything, obviously, but there's still tons out there for anyone to pick up at any time. And they're in the usual places you would suspect. The easiest is always eBay, but the price is high and you compete against others. But you have your local online listings, which are always fantastic if you can beat somebody else to the punch. And then you also have more locally an estate sale or a local auction on location is usually where the best kind of stuff, where you physically go there and you bid in person for whatever it is you're interested in, and then you can take it home that day and it's done. Because those, believe it or not, are your highest chances of finding something, because there are not a lot of people there relative to
stuff,
like,
yeah.
a online listing or eBay or something. There might be 50 people. That's nothing compared to the thousands that you could compete with. So you have a better chance there. But the most effective way to kind of find things that you never thought you would find is to just constantly ask people around you to keep a lookout for something that you happen to be looking for yourself. You can tell your friends and family, hey, I'm really looking for this specific tool. If you know anybody or you see one, just give me a call. And that is oddly more effective than almost anything else, because everybody knows somebody that's like having a garage sale or throwing something out or wants to downsize, and before it ends up on an online listing or on an auction, like that is the only method you will be able to access these tools by. Otherwise, you're going to just be like everybody else competing at that same time. You want to be there before it's even listed.
Do you think
if
it helped?
possible.
Do you think it helped that now I guess that you've got this channel and it's doing okay and people sort of know you for being the restorer? That did things just end up, in your lap because of that? There's like
Yeah, 1000%.
yeah.
Yes. I get messages every day about, hey, I found this. Is this something that would be cool? Or, hey, like I've always wanted to have this restored for my grandfather or my father. Could you do that? And those types of messages. Even just look at this. I was here yesterday working in this field, and there's literally, like a power hammer just in the field.
Is there
So
one?
it's way easier now.
Is there one incident of that where, like, someone perhaps messaged you and you were just like, "Whoa, that is so cool," and then it
Yeah, of course.
happened to
A bunch of what I've actually made into videos on YouTube are from user submissions, let's say.
amazing.
I remember the first one ever was the hand crank wallpaper cutter.
Yeah.
That was the first one that anybody ever sent to me that I made into a video. And there's been a bunch since then, for sure.
What was the story behind that tool and the person that was, giving it to you?
The wallpaper cutter specifically, that guy wanted to remain, I think, like pretty anonymous,
Yeah.
but so I'll leave, I guess, his name out of it. But he had this tool lying around for a while, and he didn't know what to do with it or what the point of it was, really, because wallpaper is not really that popular anymore. But at the time of the tool being made, wallpaper was very common, and it wasn't even really just paper. It was more of a fabric that was only printed on certain areas of a sheet of fabric, and you needed to trim off the edges of that fabric nice and clean so you could slap it on the wall. And that's exactly what this tool did. You could decide, the width of the strips, and then it had little blades and a little hand crank, and it was super cool. I loved it the second I saw it, and I was just like, yes, please send it. I'll pay for the shipping, which is always the worst part of anything that anybody offers. Of course, like the shipping hurts a lot, but it's still totally worth it. And I just began my usual process on that one, and he was just super happy to see it being done. And I still kind of continue on with that stuff today. Some people want the stuff back. Some people come to me locally here, and I'm doing basically like client work for restoration purposes. But for that specific tool, it now lives just over there, and I have it forever. And it's an awesome reminder about, the power, I guess, of having a bunch of people interested in the same stuff you are.
Yeah. Do you just keep it lying around and just occasionally go around and stroke it, or just like just stare at it?
There's a lot of stuff that I have just kept, that I have done videos on. I can't part. I can't part with it. If it's for someone, then obviously it goes back to them. But some of the tools are just so cool to me that I can't at the moment, especially after I spend, like weeks or months. Like the steam engine, I started it in February, and I like just finished it.
Right.
It was so much work. So I'm literally never letting go of the steam engine until I die. Specifically, it's right there. It's right there.
So the wife, does she get jealous of those things lying around? She's like, you don't pay me enough attention.
How dare you?
You just stroke your steam engine all the time.
Yeah, how dare you touch this steam engine more than me? Yeah, I do spend a necessary amount of time in here, as much as I possibly can, because I just love it. How could you not?
Right.
The only problem is I'm running out of space, as is always the case.
Yeah, everyone has the same problem. So you're not alone there.
It's never large enough.
You do a lot of research into patents,
yes,
through your journey with your old tools and stuff. Is there a particular patent story that sort of captivated you and like even made you like the tool even more, or made you desire a tool that you didn't have because you found this one patent that was just kind of like its story was amazing? Cool.
Yeah. So there's a few. I love the patent research process, because even the way patents are written, like 100 years ago, you almost have to speak like a slightly weird version of English to understand what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah.
And what makes it worse is that everything on Google Patents is transcripted automatically off, like using OCR technology to convert the image of a text into actual typed out text.
Yeah.
And it's not correct. It's maybe like 90% correct. So they're just words that don't exist that are in these patents. So you have to go straight to the actual real patent document every time, basically. And there's so many absolutely insanely hilarious patents that I've had people send to me, or I've come across because I do that series where I try to recreate a tool from a patent that is long forgotten. And one or two I'll mention. The first one being a mousetrap design where the mouse goes in a hole in a trap that you would set the front end of this trap where the mouse would go into the ground. Okay. At like an angle, not straight vertically into the ground, but maybe at like a 45 or less shallow degree angle.
Yep.
And then it contains the mice or mouse in this little area underground. But the second they try to escape back out of it, a legitimate Colt 45 shoots it in the face.
I was
Just
aware-
it's a massively exquisitely drawn gun, like a serious high caliber handgun that just blasts it to infinity.
I was waiting for it to be like a blender or something. Like,
Yeah,
and the
I know.
capture was a blender.
Well, this is like
and it just blends it.
1909 patent. Some guy's like, "Oh, I got the best idea." It's just insane.
It's
Insane.
like shooting fish in a barrel. Mice in a box.
Honestly, like what's the like? Yeah, it works. Like you're not wrong, but is this really the best, cheapest, easiest, safest mousetrap we could possibly design? I'm not sure.
Did that go into production? Do you know?
This is the question. You come across these things, and even if it was patented, doesn't mean it's ever been made. And even if it was patented and it was made, that doesn't even mean it looks like the patent by the time the manufacturing process is completed. So you don't even know. I have no idea, unfortunately. But that could be maybe that's a fun one to do next.
Maybe you should just
find a gun. Like I don't even know where to get a gun. Yeah, just make it.
Like,
I'll go to Texas. That seems like a Texas thing.
I was gonna say, because you're just like Australia in Canada there, like guns are not like a thing where you just
I don't even know where
lock and loaded everywhere, ready to
where to get a handgun. I have no idea. So if I ever get to that, then I'll do that. There's also another one that's just exquisite. It's an apparatus to help in the birthing process.
Birthing process?
Birthing for children, birthing children.
Okay, yep.
So the woman is strapped to a table. This is, I think, like a 1920s patent. Strapped to a table with stirrups, so their legs are like up and the table tilts and blah blah blah. Normal table at the time, birthing table, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And but the whole thing has the ability to spin at incredibly high speed, so that the G forces experienced by the baby assist in it flying out of the woman, where there is, no joke, a net to catch the baby in case it goes too far. This is 100% real.
How many children do you think were born?
Oh my god! Process? If this was ever made, I must find this. If this exists and somebody has done this, I must find this thing. If somebody ever comes across that, please immediately message me.
I feel like you need to make this. And test it with like a dummy with a watermelon coming out of it.
No, I'll get real pregnant volunteers. Like I'll pay you $6 to try this out. Yeah, like it's just insane. So obviously the table is not centered in this spinning platform, right?
Yeah.
It's like as far out to the edge as possible. It's just, and the drawing is so hilarious. I'll send it to you if you'd really like to see.
I would love to see it.
Yeah, you want to see.
I can imagine what it looks like, because I imagine like in those sort of times they had the pretty similar types of drawings where they drew like the lady like lying on the table and like a rotation.
It's all that specific art style, which I absolutely love, and I wish there was more information on that that I have consumed, because I haven't, about that specific style of patent drawing that seems to just be all consistent for like 100 years. It'd be super interesting.
Was it like did they have patent people that just
they must have had actual? So I remember reading a little bit about this and I forgot since then, but I believe there were legitimate patent drawers that you would pay to have your specific patent brought to life, in the sense. And I understand that, but what I want to know is, was there like a school that you would attend to learn, and then they kind of taught everyone the same style? Because the guidelines which I've looked up for patent drawings at the time were were kind of specific, but not necessarily that specific or that consistent. It's something that I'd love to find out. And on top of that, what is even more interesting, I think, is that before a certain period of time, and now I keep forgetting, patents in the United States absolutely required a patent model of small scale with their patent, a physical, actual model functioning. And if there's a tiny model of this little birthing thing somewhere, everyone on Earth wants this. So I wonder if it still exists. It probably doesn't, because like 70% of all the patent models were burned to the ground in an unfortunate fire.
Which seems so crazy, because like you think patents would be kind of important, so you probably get copies that not all in the one place, you idiots.
There's literally only one patent model. Yeah, I know. They didn't really plan that out. So currently, I would love to even own at this point, like any, because it's quite rare.
Yeah, my internet just dropped out a little bit there. I love the story of these patents that come up, like some of the ridiculous things you see, like from these people, like. But I mean, it was just the time and the era that they're thinking about things.
It's a time when all of the solutions that someone could come up with were just easily, well, maybe not easily, but were solvable mechanical problems.
That's right. They were mechanical, right? They weren't
electrical, like, oh yeah, I got to write an app for that, I got to get coders. It was literally like, if this stick pushes this stick and then spins this thing, and then we light this on fire, the baby fires out at high speed. Right? It's something that almost, like, anyone who just took some time to like think about something could patent something.
Right.
Not to downplay it, but it was just, it'd be much harder for you to magically come up with something right now. You know, like, okay, come up with a new adjustable wrench design that's never been patented. Like, it's very difficult.
Well,
it's all been done.
Yeah, because I mean that brings us back to the point I mentioned before, is like the key factors to telling a good story is like setting conflict and resolution. And often, like with the patterns, you can kind of see those patterns too. Like, you know, the setting might be there's a problem, you know, in this modern era, like we're having problems firing babies out of women.
Yeah,
you know,
it's a major issue.
You know, so, and then, you know, the conflict is to try and build this thing, you know, and the resolution was to finally patent it and get it out.
Yeah, that's all. Humanity is literally just, all of humanity's progress is just so we can be lazier human beings. Let's get serious. We need more production for less time, just so we can chill. Like, how do we kill more mice while I do nothing? Oh, guns in the dirt.
Well, I mean, this is the same as like the self-ordering like refrigerator and stuff like that.
Yeah,
right? You know,
that's all humanity's. That's like all of medical science is focused on, like, how do we make it so you can still eat 65 cheeseburgers every day and be perfectly healthy? That's all. Yeah. That's all. That's everything. It's every research that's ever been done.
No one wants to know the truth, which has been told a million times. You need to exercise and eat, right? Like,
but do we? Like, let's just spend all of our medical funding to find out if that's really true. It's basically it. But yes, the patent stuff is endlessly interesting every single time.
And another thing I think is interesting is often the people that you perhaps meet. You know, like you said you talking with collectors, a lot of people collect stuff, and I'm guessing like these people are not quite, you know, like normal people, you know,
like me. I'm so normal,
right? Exactly.
Yes. whatever has ever existed, there's some person who is collecting it.
Yeah.
End of sentence. That's it. So, I remember meeting a guy. He collected salt and pepper shakers and like different forks, and I was like, okay, like it doesn't appeal to me, but you
Yeah.
do you. Like I don't
Right.
care. It's just endless, and it is a lot of fun to during the research process enter these communities of collectors for a specific item, and I'll go super in depth, like the drag saw community, let's say, for example,
Mm.
which might be larger than most people think, but it's still, there aren't really that many drag saws anyways. So you go in and all of a sudden you discover all these people and they just are absolutely obsessed with these. They know the ins and outs of the majority of all the drag saws ever created. They are the true knowledge source that will legitimately be completely gone when they die because they haven't written one thing down. And whatever is written on some forum that I enter is all that's there. That's it.
Mm.
So it's another reason why I love posting these videos, because they're almost like a video patent experience. Like you get to see me take the machine apart to every single nut and bolt and see how it looks and see why it was designed that way and its purpose / function, and then have it all back together. And then now, and it's there and it's done and it's in the history books and it's saved. And that's just another one to mark down.
Right.
And then it's okay.
Do you drive these collectors mad by something you do, or like, maybe like, I don't know, maybe it's the wrong material to something?
Probably. Like I do try
Yeah.
as hard as I can to ask as many questions about a specific tool and what was supposed to be done or what's the best way. But even I cannot get it right 100% of the time, or I make a purposely incorrect choice because I wanted an aesthetic that maybe isn't as original as was intended by the manufacturer. Example being, I don't really like when brass is nickel plated. I just wish it was just brass. Like brass
Right.
is so much sexier than nickel plating. So I kind of always strip off the nickel plating, even though, technically that's not original, but those are for me and I can do whatever I want in that case. If it's for a client, I just do whatever they want to do. But the people I've seen like reactions to people that actually like legitimately might be the expert on a specific tool, and it hasn't been bad by any means. It's just they'll be able to quickly kind of point out, be like, oh, you put that on backwards. Be like, how was I supposed to know? Like
Right.
it was originally on backwards. So when I work through the video again to reassemble, I don't really know. I haven't. Have you opened up a 100-year-old gas-powered washing machine? No, I don't know. There's like 3 guys who've done this. And unless I can get like them on the phone while I'm reassembling something, I'll end up making some error like that for sure. But I can always fix it later. It's not the end of the world. It just kind of sucks that it lives in permanent error on the internet. But what can you do?
Are there any specific characters you could think of that, like ones that you just think are just over the top fun and, fun to talk with and just have a bit of a story all the time about not only, the things that they've collected, but, just a character in themselves?
Yeah, let me think. Well, to be specifically clear, when I met Andrew from Blacksmith Tools on Instagram, who's in Texas and a collector of obviously blacksmith-ish tools. It was just hilarious, honestly, because he's like so unbelievably into it and so like massively and hilariously like competitive. Like it's like a personal goal for him to own every single tool in existence, basically.
Yeah.
And it's just mind-blowing when I would enter his shop and just see, oh, okay, you have over 1,000 anvils. Like, excuse me. you just have that, and he just has them like in his office, and a bunch of them are just set up in the corner like a Christmas tree. Like, how does your floors even handle this? It was such a surreal experience because he's been doing this for longer than I have, and especially being in Texas, that would be like a really nice place to be for old tools in general to exist, because there's a lot of
old industry there.
Yeah, at least historical. There's some industry, and as well as farming, and every farm had to have their own anvil for whatever work they had to do. Like it's a good place to be. It's like being in the Northeast United States, where you have the epicenter of industrialized manufacturing at the time. There's just a huge selection of stuff you'll come across.
Yeah.
So he ended up being just it's just insane, and it's fantastic. He's like literally swinging off of the ceiling like Spider-Man, picking up random tools and like showing me stuff. It was just so hilariously odd.
But he's super nice dude, and he's a good friend of yours, right? So
yeah, we have our own podcast together.
Yeah, you can give that a shout out if you want, just for those 5 people that didn't know.
Yeah, that's the Fits All podcast with Jimmy as well.
Yeah,
and that's a lot of fun. I always look forward to those.
Yeah, awesome. I wanted to sort of just finish up my questions with, what's your white whale? What's the tool that you're really like if you got it, your life would be complete?
Okay, first of all, everybody says they have one, and it's not true, because the second you have it, you're like, okay, what's next?
Right, exactly.
But currently there is, at least for me, there's one or two that I would focus on. Okay, the first being a 1913 German-made drivable hit and miss bandsaw. Okay,
all right. You got my attention.
It's just it's too many things. It needs to be less things, but because it's so many things at once, I'm immediately interested. So it's literally exactly what it sounds like. I don't really know why it exists, other than maybe you would drive it from like farm to farm or around your own farm and cut up wood for some reason that like a chainsaw or something else couldn't do. It really kind of boggles the mind on why this exists, but it's so rare, it probably wasn't very popular, is my guess. And I've seen like one video online. There's one posted in my own Instagram feed, if you really wanted to go have a look. And it's just too cool. It's too, like, you literally start it up and the engine runs the bandsaw and the mechanics to move it and drive it.
I've got so many questions.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
How like you said drive it I was thinking it was like you kind of like roll it off the trailer and you like
No.
it kind of just wheels very slowly over to something you're gonna cut, and you like cut it, and then you wheel it back on the trailer. This is it. You're driving it like a fucking car. Is that
Yeah,
what's going
and
on?
it moves incredibly slowly.
Oh yeah, okay. So it's not exactly like this, like
Well,
speeding around from farm to farm. Like
yeah, it's
I'm
not
gonna
like a
chop this
high
tree down
speed
there, and then I'm gonna buzz over
vehicle,
to Jerry's place. And
but you're supposed to. Like it probably, I don't even know. I got to see it moving, but it's not like walking speed. It's a little faster. It's just hilarious.
maybe that's how they thought they were gonna win the war. They just
Yeah,
like
that's it.
drive it and just mow down
But it's
soldiers.
stuff like yeah, it's stuff like that tool that makes me want to find out the entire history behind that as much as humanly possible, because it's the tool that's like the impetus for all that incredible storytelling that I know exists behind it,
Hmm.
but I don't get the motivation really to solve that until I have it in my possession to be like, okay, now I must discover all of its secrets. Like, find me the photos of the guy driving this, show me what it was actually used for, because just so much is lost that you can't just piece it together by just looking at it, because it hurts your brain.
What age are we talking about? What year are we talking about? Manufacturing?
1913.
13. So it's proper old school.
Yes.
Oh my god, that would be
It's
so
like a
cool.
hit and miss engine. It's not even like a consistent, throttle govern where you could like have a gas pedal type
Yeah.
of situation. It's literally like, let's set the speed and now we're off. It's just exquisite. And another number 2 on the list is another German's coming in big time here.
Mhm.
And it's fairly recent, like it's like 60s 70s, but just hilarious. It is a chainsaw, okay, stood up vertically into the air, so the tip of the nose of the chainsaw is pointed to the sky, and it is attached to 2 half moons that clamp around a tree trunk, and the half moons contain like 6 wheels each, so that it's just the wheels touching, and it's motorized from both the it's motorized just from the actual chainsaw engine itself, and
Mm.
it rotates around the trunk of the tree while the vertical chainsaw is running, trimming the branches as it climbs up and spirals up the trunk of the tree.
How do we not have this in our lives?
Exactly. You're welcome.
I you
uh
know that makes me want to find it for you.
oh yeah, we need to. It's so cool, and that's also on my Instagram at some point, but um obviously it works best for smaller branches. Like, it's not going to cut through like 6 inches of branch, and it works obviously best with completely straight, like pine trees or something like that.
Right, yeah. I can imagine
uh,
it'd be like to help, in those like those pine forests that they use for logging and stuff like that. They just
exactly
just
exactly.
strip it all up, ready to go, so it's easier to
So I
transport.
ask you this though, how does it know when to stop?
It's got like an ejection cord or some shit. Surely, like, yeah, it's like like you gotta just jank on a chain or something, and it tells it.
No, it's completely wireless.
I imagine, now that you made me think about it. Jeez. It'd be funny if it had like an altitude meter on it and see
Right,
how high it was.
I know, it knows. Yeah, like
Yeah,
a distance, like go 20 feet and come back.
yeah, or maybe it's like a rotation counter, something like that.
No, close. We're getting close. Do
Ah,
do you do you want to know?
yeah, just you have to tell us.
Okay, so you set on the machine before you send it off. You set it to return at a specific diameter that the 2 half moons are closed.
Ah,
So when they eventually close close enough, it triggers a switch and it reverses back down. and you can adjust that as needed for different sized tree trunks. It's just this exquisite engineering.
You know,
It's
that
too
would just
good.
be a really fun way to like get a cat down out of a tree.
Yeah. Oh, you're not coming down? What up now?
Oh, look out now.
Or like
Off that
just
goes.
kill wasp nests or something like that.
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So that tool, if it ever enters my life, I'll be very happy because I got to see that run. There's a little bit of info on it, more than other stuff, because it is a later, like it's not 100-year-old tool. It's only,
Yeah.
50, 60. So um
What do
maybe.
you know about the people who made it? Like, what do you know anything about that?
Um I haven't looked at it recently. The last research I did was maybe like a year or two ago. So I don't remember a lot. I know that there are more modern versions, like maybe the 80s, that were made in Japan, of similar design and a remote control,
That's
uh,
awesome.
which is awesome. Yeah.
It'd be
But
funny.
that specific one, I don't know.
Is it like wireless remote, or are we talking like a cable remote?
No, it's like a wireless, like old, remote control car
Oh
remote, like
my
just
God.
forward and reverse. That's basically it.
Could you imagine just putting that around someone's legs and just going,
Ugh,
good luck?
welcome. Or just ruin someone's tree in the middle of the night. You'd never know. So sacred. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the company that made that. It was actually really hard for me to research because I don't know German
Right.
and I don't know how to search on Google in German or the German Google site to get what I want. So there might be more information out there than I have specifically noticed. So if anybody finds that, please send it my way. I'll be very interested because I'd like to get one of those two. For sure. Like before I die, I must see this thing in person. It's too good. There's a few videos of them online on YouTube as well, so you could check them out. I don't know even what the original name was anymore, but it's somewhere. It's probably in my listing on my Instagram.
Talking about original names, I heard on Fitzall about your Fractal Vice.
Yes.
I think it was just a bit funny because I don't know anything about vices. I don't know anything about fractal vices. But
Right.
it turns you termed that a fractal vice. It's not actually what it's called, right?
Right. So before I named my video, or at least that tool, Fractal Vice, there was only one mention in a forum where they were discussing this vice that they found, which was basically another version of the one I had, and they're discussing it, and one of the commenters was like, yeah, that's kind of like a fractal vice looking thing, or it's more like the jaws are aligned fractally. And I'm like, oh, they are. That's true, because the original patent name is like something to maintain intimate contact with oddly shaped objects. I was like, that's a horrible name, so we're not going to do that, and we're just going to use that fractal term. And that's how that kind of exploded all over the internet. Like I had no idea it would be that crazy.
Well, because you mentioned too, there's like this now 3D printer guys printing
Yes,
versions of it and
it's
calling it a
become,
fractal vice.
yeah, now everyone just calls it a fractal vice. There's a guy making them in metal, in steel, for engraving purposes, that has called them Fractal Vice. So
Amazing.
And what's crazy about that, okay, is the guy the engraver, vice maker, that has chosen to use the words Fractal Vice, basically posted his website, fractalvice.com,
Yeah.
a day after I launched the video with all this. It did not exist at all. But it contained all this information about how he has applied for a patent on it with a new tweak that he had, and it's nicely like laser engraved, and it says Fractal Vice, and all this mention of Fractal Vice that is no way possible that he saw my video and did all of that
in
in 24 hours.
Yeah.
So we both came to the same name, but completely separately on separate timelines and trajectories that happened to almost perfectly coincide to the day. And I find that amazing.
Well, obviously,
I would love.
Obviously, that guy's a no name, so you clearly.
No, his name is Stephen Lindsay. He makes
like
really
I said,
high.
no name.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
It's
very high quality engraving tools. It's just like I should send him a message and be like, "How did this
happen?
How did this happen? This is the most serendipitous thing that has happened in like a long time. It's very coincidental."
Well, I think that's interesting in the story in itself, just in the way that, you're just on forums, looking at what people are saying about this type of tool, and then you came up with this idea to call it a fractal vice from the information that people were,
exactly
sharing,
and it technically the jaws are in a fractal pattern, so it's correct. It's a much better name than what the patent listed, but fractals weren't defined until the 70s, so the patent was, at that point 70 years basically too early.
Well, and the other question I had is, have you ever put your junk in there just to test it?
Oh yeah, you have to. Yeah, naturally. That's how I know it's mine. It has that je ne sais quoi about it. that I know it's mine. If there's two fractal vices side by side, I'll know.
Yeah. Like if everyone breaks yours out of it safe, I'm sure you'd be like,
yeah, oh. I know the demand is incredibly high for that vice.
I think that's just a great thing because
it's cool. I like people are all over it. It's immediately interesting because the second you see it function, you think to yourself, yeah, that's actually useful.
Yeah, and I immediately said, I need that.
You need that.
I need that in my life.
Everybody wants it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a scaling banana too, and I need something to hold it.
Yeah, naturally. Yeah. It's the only vice that can hold it at its maximum strength.
Right, exactly.
But there are improvements. There are improvements you can make, and the 3D printing guys actually recognize that and have made improvements on the engineering that I think are worth maybe replicating in steel at some point, because the only issue, the issues I have with it, at least from an engineering standpoint, are that first of all, in milling machine vices, the lead screw pushes against a literal half sphere. Okay, and that sphere is greased up and it moves, and it's usually pressing both. That sphere, the round part, is facing at a 45-degree angle downwards, so there is both downward pressure when you're clamping and sideways pressure. Because if you have too much sideways pressure, like left and right opposing each other, it just buckles upwards into the sky, right? Unless you have something to stop that. So this vice doesn't really have anything to stop that. And that's why when I took it apart, it was shattered in the part that stops it from buckling upwards, because it's not strong enough to stop that. Because if you just over torque it, boom, the cast iron pops right off.
Right.
And that's a design flaw in my opinion. The other being the screws that hold each individual jaw in place. that stop them from fully sliding out of their dovetail have just a little tiny pin at the end of the screw that's hardened, and that's what stops all of it from moving. So if you clamped a little too hard, you just break that little pin off.
Yeah, and there's
and now the jaw, it's still there, it's just free floating and can slide out. So that would need to be addressed too if you were to make a modern version of it. And the Steve Lindsay one, I don't think solves for that, since it doesn't have any screws in it. So I guess they can just slide out, but because it's for engraving, you don't need that intense clamping pressure, I don't think. But maybe it is in there. No one has seen it yet.
Interesting. I think I'm going to get into the rapid fire 5. You ready for this one?
Do it.
Here we go. First question. What's something people get wrong about you?
Oh God. I don't even know. This is like hurting my brain. Let me take longer in this rapid fire.
Roger.
I think here we go. I think people honestly do believe that I do this for a living or have a job related to this in any way. And both are not true at all. So that's for surely something that people get wrong.
What's something you like doing that's not maker or restoring related?
Oh, I am still and always will be obsessed with gardening to like the maximum. It's like, so it's too much fun for me.
Because for those who don't know, you're not a gardener, but you kind of work with plants, I guess, and the science, is that right? Science with
yes, essentially
plants?
like a plant scientist, to be to narrow it down just a little bit. But the gardening part, like every summer I get super pumped. Like in February when it's -50 and I have 1 hour of sun, I'm just focusing on that to mentally survive.
You're preparing your 20,000 acres.
Yeah, like 20,000 acres. Yeah. I'm just the dumbest person.
What project is completely priceless that you'd never ever sell?
Well, okay. The Fractal Vice, it's not being sold. The steam engine isn't being sold. And then anything that my father or my grandfather, who were both carpenters, have either used or made will never be sold by me while I'm alive.
Here's a difficult one. What does happiness look like?
What is happiness? Oh, good. Happiness. Okay, to me, two parts. I can live with failure, but not what ifs. So I'd rather, at this point, mentally, I can handle failing. I can't handle thinking for the rest of my life, oh, if I did that, I could have been this, I could have done that. I can't do that. I can't mentally handle that. So I would rather just fail. So there's a happiness in being content and not necessarily being happy, but just content to me. Because I think if you're happy all the time, you have some sort of mental disorder.
Yeah.
Like it's not something that, it's like the opposite end of a spectrum of being angry. I think right in the middle, like just being content, just if you can just sit on a park bench and just like stare for like 30 minutes and just chill, I think that's it. Like, don't look at your phone, just chill, just sit on the seat, don't be uncomfortable, just exist is as close as I don't know I'll ever get to being happy, I guess.
Yeah, for me, it's like a lot to do with gratitude. So like, just be grateful for what you have and
yeah, of course, that
and
too.
just be like content with what you got, right? So
it's all about being content, at least in my eyes.
And the last question, which Jimmy has now introduced, who should be the next guest on this podcast?
Ooh, okay. I would suggest, if possible, his name is Alex from I Did a Thing
Yeah.
on 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 YouTube.
Oh
I
my!
guess
I
you know of
I
him.
love Alex. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, seems like a fantastic human being. We've talked a few times, and they're up there. He sent me those steel-toed Crocs that he made,
Yeah.
so I have them here. They're hilarious, and I've used them in a bunch of videos. That was like before, obviously, his channel exploded to infinity.
Yeah, because he's pretty
But
big now. It's crazy.
yeah, but he would be great. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I would recommend him if
All right. Well,
possible. You never know.
Alex from I Did a Thing, you're about to be on this podcast because Eric just dubbed you in.
Ooh, yeah.
Actually,
Hopefully.
he was on my list like before
Oh,
this all
really? Nice.
started. Yeah, he
Yeah.
was on my like, the bigger names to get on this
Oh, yeah.
podcast. So
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'm sure it'll be fine. He's a busy guy though.
Yeah,
But
but
Australia's in lockdown, kind of. So maybe he's got time.
yeah, I'll just sweet talking with some sweet Aussie tones or something.
Just talk about the bottle O
Yeah.
and
Went down the servo, got a dog eye and sauce. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. My brother just came back from living in Australia for like 5 years, so I know a little more than I did before that about Australia.
Awesome, man. I want to say thank you for coming on the show, Eric. I really appreciate your time, man.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah. I hope through some of the stories Eric's sort of able to share with you guys, and I guess just the weird and wonderful world of old tools and that sort of thing, like you understand that meaning behind the story kind of matters, and whether you're restoring tools or making an idea a reality, the story behind it has this like a larger impact on why something is important. And without the story, it's hard to connect with others and share like the knowledge that you know get from the project. And I just want to encourage you guys to get out there and share your stories of what you're doing out there in your garages, in your workshops, wherever it is, and just show people what you're doing and why you're doing it. I want to give a big shout out to my patron supporters, especially to my top tier heroes, Stian Surhus, Sylvester Arneson, and Andreas Fallman. And a big shout out to a welcome back actually to David Bauer from David Bauer Arts. He's now supporting me again. So thank you so much for coming on board. Again, you're amazing guys. If you would like to support this podcast and the shenanigans on my ridiculous YouTube channel, Garage Avenger, head over to Patreon, become a part of the GA Nation, and get access to the podcast after show on all tier levels. And you'll get to ask Eric questions.
Anything you want.
Anything you want. So, yeah. And I encourage you to give me some feedback. You can do so by sending your DMs to @GarageAvenger on Instagram. If you got something from the show, be sure to share it with some friends and family that also will get something from this podcast. Thank you so much, Eric, for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you very much. I had a lot of fun. I always love to meet more and more people in the community, especially after COVID. It's especially nice to talk to people that I haven't seen a million times already. Right. And I do miss the Maker Central experience. So hopefully we can meet up again if I end up going again.
Yep.
Next May. I don't know. Are you going?
Yeah, I'm going to do my utmost to try and be there. If it's all happening, then I'll be there.
Yes. To be determined, of course. But right. Yeah, I would like to go. It's like a 14-hour flight for me, but like I still would enjoy it, of course.
Yeah, and I'm just looking forward to meeting a lot of the people. Like, when I went to Maker Central, I knew absolutely no one. And in fact, I kind of didn't even really know what a maker was. I kind of only just learned that term a couple of months before,
right?
Flying to Birmingham. So it was a really great experience. So I would encourage anyone that's sort of listening who's never really done one of those big meetup things, go check it out. It's well worth your time.
Yeah, it's an incredible amount of fun.
I just want to say thank you everyone for listening. I'm Justin White. I hope you will ignite your creativity a little bit and make your ideas reality from this podcast. Until next time, keep pushing yourself, keep ballsing up things, keep learning, get inspired, and I'll catch you on the flip side. All right, well then, there you go. Woo! Come on the show.